I think it's from that first test match is my favourite cricket memory. I remember walking out to bat, I looked up at the scoreboard and it said, "Congratulations, Shane Warne, you're the 350th test cricketer to play for Australia." That's not a lot of people. Only 350 people ever have played cricket for Australia. Well, I think the cherry Negroni would be the right one because you've got to pop your cherry, and I popped my cherry playing cricket for Australia at the Sydney Cricket Ground. December 30, 1991 I got picked. Had New Year up in Sydney and then made my debut game for Australia at the Sydney Cricket Ground, which was a pretty amazing experience. I was walking with Dean Waugh and we both had a couple of pies, a couple of beers in the members, and we had them all under arm trying to carry them and drink them. And as I ran into the team manager, Ian McDonald, he said, "I'd go easy on that, you could be playing the next test match." And I went, "Yeah, whatever, mate, yeah, sure, Macca." That night, I got the phone call, December 30, 1991, "You've been picked in the squad for the next test match in Sydney." So we just kept going, you know, we just kept drinking that night, all of us, and celebrated that. I was 21, you know, I was so young, I'd hardly played any first class cricket. I played a handful of games. I was inexperienced, I didn't know half the team. I had to introduce myself to some of the team. So I remember standing there with my cricket bag outside the dressing room saying, "Oh, g'day Bruce, it's Shane Warne." "Yeah, g'day mate." And back then, you know, late 80s, early 90s, you sort of didn't say anything until you were spoken to. So one of the standout things I remember was New Year's Eve, 91, David Boone and Jeff Marsh. We used to stay at a place called the Old Sydney Park Royal on the Rocks. And the rooftop was always the Australian cricket team New Year's Eve. So there was a couple of Eskies there, and Boone and Marsh said to me, "Right, youngster, we heard you don't mind a beer." It's a gin now, but you don't mind a beer. We're going to finish these Eskies and watch the fireworks. I went, "Okay, let's go." So we demolished the Eskies, and the next day we had training. And Bob Simpson, our coach, used to have a thing called make a yard. So he'd hit the cricket ball up, and you had to run after it, and he'd always hit them just out of your reach, so you had to make a yard. And he'd sort of embarrass the young fella, and sure enough, all the old guys were watching me, and I just couldn't do it. I was gone. I was unfit anyway. I was overweight. I was 99 kilo. I was a fat bastard. I was nowhere. And I had the worst hangover after drinking with Marsh. So I was trying to make a yard, and I just couldn't do it. In the end, I sort of was on my knees, throwing up. I was gone. This was my first impressions to the Australian cricket team. It wasn't good. And they sort of embraced me, and they said, "Welcome to the team." And that was sort of it. So we'd picked Bruce Reid, Craig McDermott, Merv Hughes, and myself. But we really only had three main bowlers, Merv, Craig McDermott, and myself. And I bowled thousands of overs and got smashed to every single part of the Sydney Cricket Ground. I dropped Ravi Shastri on 66, caught and bowled. He went on to make 206. He was caught at deep cover, the late, great Dean Jones, a fellow Victorian. He caught it, I got it, and I ended up having the figures of 1 for 150 my first test match, and I thought, well, at least they can't take that away from me. I'll never play again, but at least they can't take that away from me. That Indian side then had Dilip Vengsarkar, Kapil Dev, Mohammad Azharuddin, Sidhu, young Sachin, I think he was 12. I don't know how old he was. He looked like he was about 12. He was probably 16 or something. He made 100. Ravi Shastri made the 200. So they had an unbelievable batting team. Their bowling wasn't that strong. Kapil Dev was towards the end, but their batting was dynamite strong. Sanjay Manjrekar as well. So they were really good. So at the end of it, I thought, look, I thought, you know, I didn't bowl very well. I got smashed. That'll be it. Luckily enough, they stuck with me, and I sort of like to think I repaid them over the years to repay the selectors that showed faith in me. I think though, when I look back, people often ask, what's your favourite cricket memory? And I think it's from that first test match is my favourite cricket memory. I remember walking out to bat, I looked up at the scoreboard and it said, "Congratulations, Shane Warne, you're the 350th test cricketer to play for Australia." And as I was walking out, I thought, that's not a lot of people. Only 350 people ever have played cricket for Australia. So I was pretty proud of that. And looking back, I think it's really important that you have those. If you come onto the international scene in any sport, top level sport, and you do really well at the start, I don't think that holds you in good stead. Sure, there's exceptions to the rule. But I think if you struggle at the start, I think it makes you appreciate how hard it is, top level sport, all the things that go along with top level sport. So struggling at the start, I thought, gave me a great foundation to appreciate the successes more when I had them. I was in and out of the side for a bit, and when I came back in Boxing Day Test match 1992 against the West Indies, I took 7 for in front of my home crowd, 90-odd thousand people at the Boxing Day Test, and from then on it was pretty good. When you play top level sport, you really just don't want to embarrass yourself, and you want to prove to yourself and everyone else that you're good enough. So no matter what anyone says to you, they can say you're good enough, keep at it, stick with it, keep training hard, and all those things, but until you actually do it yourself, you don't believe. And once you believe you're good enough for that level, that's when the good stuff happens. That's when you come out, you've got that confidence. It doesn't matter if things don't quite go your way, because you'll stick at it. You know what needs to be done to be successful. That's very simplistic. There's obviously a lot more to it than that, but that's the bottom line, that until you've done it yourself and done something special at whatever sport you're doing and you've nailed it, because once you believe you're good enough, anything can happen. Merv Hughes was a terrific cricketer. He's a great mate, one of my dear friends, but he's a pest too, you know, but every team needs a Merv Hughes. You know, he was great team man, one of the best team men I've ever played with. But rooming him was an experience. I remember in Adelaide, it was my second test match, and you know, Merv was one of the groomsmen at my wedding, so we know each other well, you know, great mates. So it was the second test match, Australia versus India. I'm rooming with Adelaide, and back then there was no own rooms, you room right together. So when we check in, there's a huge big bed, and then there's the stretcher fold out off the wall. And you know, at 125 kilos, I don't think Merv's going to have the stretcher bed off the wall. So, and I'm the youngster, so I get the stretcher bed, obviously. So we have a few too many drinks that we should have at the bar the night before the game, and we get back at, I don't know what time, it's probably midnight, 12:30. And we've had, when I say a few too many, way too many. And I sort of hop into bed, and next minute I hear this phone, and he goes, "Are you hungry?" I went, "Yeah." He goes, "Yeah, I saw it, room service." So he picks the phone up and he goes, "Room service? Yep. Can I order some food, please? Can I have 2 hamburgers with the lot? I'll have 1 steak sandwich. I'll have a side of bacon, 2 sides of fries. Do you want anything?" I said, "Oh mate, I'll have a toasted cheese sandwich. 4 toasted cheese sandwiches and some extra fries. Drink? Milkshake, strawberry milkshake, chocolate milkshake, and a vanilla one as well. And we need it really quickly. Thank you." And I went, "My God, that's a fair bit of food." Anyway, so it comes in and we eat our food. We don't get through all of it. Well, Merv tried, but he didn't. And he said, "I'm going to teach you a very important lesson in life." I said, "Oh yeah, what's that?" He said, "Never leave the room service tray with all this sort of food outside your own room. Put it outside one of the fitness guys' rooms so they get in trouble." I said, "Okay." So he said, "Craig McDermott's staying down the hall, move it outside his door." I said, "Okay, what room?" And he's looked up the room list, finds out what room it is. So I go out and I start pushing the trolley, and next minute I hear the door slam. I went, "Hey, suck shit. So I'm starkers. I'm pushing this trolley to Craig McDermott's room, and I have to sit out there, and he waits until I can see someone. In the end, he calls and says, "We've lost our key." And I go, "Mate, you're in our room. How are they know you've lost the key?" He said, No. I've asked them to bring up another key for you." And I went, "Oh, okay." Anyway, next minute, the manager's come up with a key, and I'm starkers, like sitting like this in the corridor. So it's just an absolute stitch up. But he was great fun to play with. If the game was drifting away from you and you needed one player to throw the ball to take a wicket, out of everyone I played with, I'd give it to Merv Hughes. He just made things happen when you really needed it and when it was hard. The flatter the wicket, the harder it is for the faster bowler, the better Merv was. Sledging or gamesmanship or whatever else you want to call it, trash talk, is all about moments when sometimes the match is on the line and it's just a little comment, or you wouldn't want to get out now or something. So it's nothing crass or personal or anything like that. And you've got to pick your mark. You know, a few times we had to go at Sachin Tendulkar, and in the end, every time he played against Australia, it was like his testimonial game. he made 100. So we stopped doing that. Brian Lara a bit the same. Didn't want to fire him up. But then there was guys like Daryl Cullinan from South Africa, Nasser Hussain from England, that you felt that you could get under his skin. And if you had a go at him at the right time, I remember one with Nasser. I'll give you an example. I was vice captain of the Australian side and Steve Waugh got injured, so I was captain of the Australian side. And we had the one-day series going around and we were doing pretty well, but it got to the stage where just before the finals and we're playing in Sydney and I was fielding at cover and Nasser was batting and they were cruising England and Nasser was captain of England. And Nasser's into me, "You're never going to captain again, just know that." And I said, "Come on, Nasser, I know you're going to get out. You think you can play one-day cricket, but I know you're going to get out. You're going to let your team down. Make the most of this captaincy. You're never going to captain again. We're going to smash it." And it's going on and on and on. So I'd saved myself for a couple of overs and McGrath for a couple of overs, Glenn McGrath. So I was getting to the stage now where if we don't come on now, it's too late. So I think it was the 41st or 42nd over. They only need like about 35 runs to win. They've got 7 wickets in hand. Nasser's on 50 odd or 60. They're cruising. So I bring myself on the next over after Nasser and I have had this sort of argy-bargy, sledging each other. And he runs down the wicket to try and hit me out the park and misses it. Gets stumped. I get a couple more wickets. I bring McGrath back. He gets a couple of wickets. We end on and win the game. So that's where sledging played a part in getting under Nasser's skin because he thought they're in a position. He wanted to smash me out the. He hated me when we played and he wanted to smash me out the park. But because I had so many wickets in hand and they thought they could win that game, they should win 9 times out of 10. They thought, "Oh well, if I don't, so be it." And in the end, we won. And commentating with Nasser all the time too, I love it. I try and bring it up every single time I can to see if the guys can show it because it just makes me laugh. Well, it's a Pineapple Collins. We've gone through all the rest so far that we've done today. And the only reason I give this one to Mr. Gatting is because if the ball had been a pineapple, he would not have missed it, he would have eaten it. So thanks, Gat. Thank you for missing it. I'm glad it wasn't a Pineapple Collins. But look, it was, for any Australian or English player, playing in an Ashes is it defines your career, what you do in the Ashes cricket. So for me to play in a successful era of Australian cricket team, where I think I played 8 or 9 series, we lost 1 in 2005, was pretty amazing. We dominated England. It's not you don't try in all the other ones, of course you do, but there's just something extra about an Ashes. And we talked about the Masters, about capturing everyone's imagination. The Ashes captures everyone's imagination. But going back to 93, my first ever Ashes series, I remember watching growing up Jeff Thompson, Dennis Lilly, Ian Chappell, all these guys, John Snow, Boycott, Botham, all these guys for England and Australia. Then in '89, I went over and played league cricket in Bristol. And I watched Australia regain the Ashes and win a clean sweep. And watching Merv steam in and watching it give it to the Poms, it was like, oh, I hope one day that I could actually do that. So fast forward 4 years later, 1993, and I'm on the plane with Merv. I said, "Merv, what's an Ashes series like?" And he said, "Oh, mate, it's the best. There's no air travel. So you travel around on the bus. We're sponsored by a brewery. There's still rest days in Test cricket, and the Poms are shit. So it's a fantastic tour for 6 months." I said, "Okay, sounds pretty good to me." So get to the first Test match. I've been belted all around the park. Previously, we played a warm-up game, and Graham Hick, who was a good player for England, he made 200. And before that game, Alan Border said to me, he said, "Look, don't show this guy anything bar leg breaks. Just bowl leg breaks. Don't bowl wrong-uns and flippers and sliders and any of that stuff, just plain leg breaks." I said, "Oh, should be good enough for him anyway." Well, as I said, he went on and made 200, hit me for 13 sixes. So driving back up to Manchester for the first Test was a bit like, geez, okay, I've got to fire up here. Let's start. So I was sort of a little bit tentative, but also excited, nervous, all those different emotions about playing your first Test, your first Ashes Test, just being belted as well. But I was still pretty confident. So when it got my time to bowl, I bowled to Mike Gatting, who was the best player of spin, one of the best players of spin in the world, not just for England, and Graham Gooch, one of the best player England's ever produced. And they're standing there just sort of staring at me, and I'm at the top of my mark, and I'm thinking, okay, this is it. I just thought, right, just rip this leg break, just spin it as far as you can. Don't worry about where it goes, just spin it as far as you can and send a message to Graham Hick, who's up there, and the rest of his teammates. Just rip it. And so I remember coming in, and it just came, when you try and rip something like that, it comes out of the hand, you know it's going to be good. You don't know what's going to happen down the other end. It might spin too far and miss the bat. They might play a great shot. They might edge it past slip. Anything could happen. They might try and smash it, goes up the inside and drops it. You don't know what's going to happen, but all I knew when it left my hand, that it was a good ball. And I knew straight away. Then it sort of happened in slow motion. I remember Gat sort of following the drift, and then it sort of just stopped and spun past his bat and just bit the outside edge and then just clipped the top of off stump. And it was one of those moments where you go, yes, I was so happy that I took a wicket. But to do it with your first ball was a fluke. You know, like, it was a fluke. I never did it again, ever. I played for 23 years of cricket. I never did it again. So you can look at it as I suppose as a leg spinner looking at it, I go, it's the perfect leg break. It's what you dream about as a leg spinner, to bowl that all the time. It just shows you it doesn't happen all the time. It's not easy to do. And that series was the first ever series of big screens at the cricket matches. We had the Citron screens around the ground. So obviously we all looked up at the wicket, at the screens, because they never used to be there when we started. You know, obviously playing at the MCG or something, though, they had the big ones there, but when you toured, there wasn't the screens around. And we all sort of looked at it and went, ooh, that was pretty good. Then as we sort of went to, you know, back in the dressing room, and then the replays, well, they're just replaying, and then at night time, you're watching TV and it'll just flash on, and it was like, Jesus, that's bloody good. And then as it's gone on, everyone said it's the best ball that's ever bowled, it's the ball of the century. I'll take it. It was, so to do it first ball, I was very, very proud of being able to do it first ball. And to one of the best players with spin in the world, and it was England, and it was the Ashes, and it was my first ever ball in the Ashes. So, yeah, I feel pretty good about that one. I think Richie Benaud enhanced the delivery, and that's what everyone's meant to do as commentators. You're meant to enhance the experience of the viewer watching, and Richie did it better than anyone. Yeah, I'm a huge Bruce Springsteen fan. I've got my own gin, which is 708. So now obviously there's lots of different mixes you can do and lots of different drinks you could make him. In the 70s, he's going to be old school. He's rock and roll, old school. So it has to be something classic. I mean, all these songs are classic. They're all hits. So I think the old classic martini, not the half drunken one like I have, but a full classic martini, I think would be the best to give the boss, Bruce Springsteen. Yeah, I had the pleasure of meeting him once. I've never done it to anyone else in my life, but I was so nervous. I did, and you know, sometimes when you just, as you're speaking, you want to take those words back. He came up and I got introduced to him, and I asked for a photo, which was fine. And then I said, oh, Bruce, would you mind smiling in the photo? And as I was saying, would you mind smiling in the photo, I said, what have I done? And he sort of looked at me and went, yep. And we did the photo, and I've got the photo, and it's like, I got this awkward, embarrassed look on my face because I was just an absolute dick. I didn't have any control over what I was saying, and then he walked off, and I just went, oh, that was my hero, the one person I idolise, and so hopefully I get another chance before it's too late. Late 70s, or mid to late 70s, I think. Yeah, all that like Born to Run album, Darkness on the Edge of Town, Greetings from Asbury Park, all those ones before Born in the USA. And then I think it was 85, Born in the USA came, and it was a concert here, and I was 15. I remember lining up at the showgrounds overnight. I stayed overnight, and there were so many people there. And once they opened the gates to get into the concert, everyone just barged in, and everyone got pushed, and I got pushed to the front, so I saw like 4 or 5 rows from the front, and I had just sitting up to him. It was just unbelievable. And I think since then, I think I'm in the 40s, somewhere around 42, 43 concerts I've seen Bruce Springsteen play over a long period of time. I think obviously seeing him in your hometown here in Melbourne was pretty amazing. I had the opportunity to see him in Madison Square Garden, but it didn't eventuate in the end. So yeah, seeing him in your hometown here in Melbourne was pretty amazing. He's just a legend. All the stories you hear about him, about just how down to earth and that he is, I think he comes across like that. And his music, he puts on a show for the fans too. They're well over 2 hours. I've been lucky enough to experience some pretty amazing concerts with Coldplay. Chris Martin's a very dear friend, a very good mate, one of my best friends. So. And Ed Sheeran's a dear friend as well. So I've been lucky enough to see some wonderful concerts. But it's something special when your childhood hero in Bruce Springsteen plays and you go and watch him. Yeah, it's awesome. And I know every word to all the songs too. So I'm one of those, I stand there and sing the whole time too. Well, I've got a Bronx Martini because we're looking at all the different names of the drinks and the cocktails we have, and this is probably the closest to Augusta is the Bronx in York, so that's what we can get to. So I'll go with the Bronx Martini. I went with a couple of my great mates, Rick Lewis and Ross Desmond, and we went for a week, 10 days actually. We went to Miami and then Augusta, and we had a golf 10-day trip planned for a long time. So we did that, played all these golf courses, then we actually got to Augusta. And it's not till you actually get to Augusta that you realise how special the place is. I mean, we've all watched it on the TV thousands of times, every shot when Tiger chipped on the Bova in the back of 16 and you hear, in your life, you know, just the comment, everything about it. The one thing I didn't realise was how hilly it is. It's really steep, but there's a magic. Just walking around, there's just a magic. Even for non-golf lovers, I reckon they would still love it. So we'd played 3 rounds, and this was the 3rd round. I'd played the 16th 2 other times. One, I made a birdie to a front pin, and a lot of people, pros, make the birdies there. And then the 2nd round I played at the 16th, I hit it in the water. I pulled it into the water, no good. The 3rd one we played, well, this was the one. So I think it was 157 or 159 yards up a slight hill into a little breeze. Not much, but just a little breeze. And I hit my quite high, so I was worried that if I get a 7-iron, I wouldn't get it up enough. So I needed a little bit more club, and I tried to hit a bit of a lower shot rather than a high shot and let it sit, because the pin is the Friday pin, which is a back right pin, which has never ever had a hole in one. No one has ever had a hole in one at the history of the club. Now, after this had happened, I got a letter. They sent me a plaque, a frame of the ball and everything. They all sent it all to me because they said no one's ever done that. Now, I don't know if they're just making me feel good. I doubt it, because I don't think they'd do that. And I know in the tournament at Augusta, the US Masters, no one's ever had a hole in one to a back right pin. So the pin was back right, it's the Friday pin. I hit a 6-iron. And as you hit it, you sort of say, oh, I've hit that well. And then, you know, the guys you're playing with, they say, oh, be good, that looks good. Be as good as you look. Suddenly one bounce, boom, straight in. And I'd never ever had a hole in one, never gone close. So it's my first ever hole in one. And I love my golf, I love it. So to have a hole in one at Augusta on one of the most iconic holes in world golf on the planet, to a back right pin that no one has ever done, to be the only person to do it, I'll take that. Thoroughly enjoyable, amazing place. Geez, it's a special place. It's the mecca of golf. You know, any golfer, if you said, can I play one course in the world, what course would you like to play? I think everyone would say Augusta. Yeah, it's sort of like the Lords of cricket, Madison Square Garden. There's so many iconic venues around the world for sport, but I think there's nothing like Augusta. I think it captures the imagination of the public, and not just golf lovers or sport lovers. Everyone watches the Masters because something always happens on the back nine on Sunday. It is just unique. When we're off the pitch, after, you know, do whatever you have on the field, play it as hard and as fair on the field as you can. But once you get off the field, go and sit in the dressing room, have a beer and have a laugh about it. And that was a good thing. When I started in the late 80s and early 90s, you know, that's what you did. Whoever was in the field, you would grab a beer or a soft drink and you'd go, generally a beer, and go next door and sit with the opposition for hours. We did it domestically and we did it internationally. And I think it's one of those old traditions that I just think should come back to cricket. And even all sports, I think there's nothing like getting to know your opposition. It's fun. Sport was fun. My job, you know, I hear sportsmen these days saying it's their job. My job was to try and be the best parent I could to my 3 children. My hobby and my passion was my cricket, my sport. I played because I loved it. You know, I was passionate about it, I loved it, and it was fun. So I never really saw it as a job, and I think I played like that. I tried to entertain when I could. I think people enjoyed watching me play and watching the team play. So, yeah, I like to think people will look back and think that I entertain them.